Saints Row 2 was way ahead of its time, and was honestly Volition's best work. I think when most people think of Saints Row, they think of the silly failed franchise that has long parted ways with its former self.
Dude, what the fuck?
But upon revisiting Saints Row 2, I've come to realize that the parts that make up the whole Saints Row pie was absolute gold. When looking back at what Volition was and what made the early Saints Row games so good, you have to look at what happened to Volition to have made the series end up where it is now. So we go back to 1993 where it all began. Originally founded as Parallax Software by Mike Cullis and Matt Toshlog, it started its journey with the development of the acclaimed Descent series. The company then split in 1996 with Cullis retaining Parallax and renaming it to Volition. The real turning point came when Volition was acquired by THQ in 2000. This partnership led to the creation of the Red Faction series, and most notably, the Saints Row series. The Saints Row series, especially the first two games, have, in my opinion, received unfair amount of hate and unnecessary comparisons, which hindered the game more than anything.
This is an open design, 3D, third-person perspective action game, and it plays, looks, and feels just like GTA.
No matter, the first Saints Row game was released in 2006, and for the time, it was a groundbreaking open-world action adventure and set the stage for the series' success. I'm kidding. It was actually a pretty standard open-world crime game, and at the time, there was only one other game that emulated it the most, that being Grand Theft Auto. Despite the comparisons, its blend of humor and great performances and a busy world made for a fresh take on the open world crime genre. THQ's bankruptcy in 2012 led to Volition being acquired by Koch Media and becoming a part of the Deep Silver label. Despite the change in ownership, Volition continued to develop the Saints Row games, but the series began to lose its original charm and appeal. But all that aside, that's why we're going to focus on the better part of this series, being Saints Row 2. The story for Saints Row 2 is by no means the deepest, most thought out story, but when looking at the events that play out in both the first game and leading up to the second game, the game starts when you survive an explosion and you wake up finding your gang, the 3rd Street Saints, in complete disarray. This sets the stage for the gripping tale of revenge and redemption as we seek to rebuild the gang and reclaim our territory. The story takes a more noticeable, semi-serious tone that ultimately sets them miles apart from the more silly later entries.
Quit crying, you baby! Let's see what this big bastard can do!
Saints Row allows for you to embody the story. To me personally, I think allowing players to create a character makes for a way better relation to the story, which kind of humanizes the character. Also, the character creator is absolutely stacked when it comes to customability. I mean, you can change the way your character walks, talks, and even taunts. For the time this game came out, the character creator still kind of holds up to this day. It's the small silly stuff like this that put it in its own lane in terms of things like this that made it truly different. Saints Row 2 also does a pretty good balance of plugging a joke when the time calls for it, and the opposite when things get serious.
I'm curious if you can keep your cavalier attitude when 2,000 volts are running through your body.
Oh yeah? And I'm curious if you can keep acting like a douchebag when I shove that gavel up your ass.
Take the funeral of Aisha, for instance. That mission was absolutely abhorrent. For context, the Ronin, a Japanese crime syndicate, kidnaps Aisha, forcing Johnny Gat and the playa to come along and aid her, only to find it's a trap, and she loses her head. After the loss of Aisha, we come to turn to dismantle the Ronin completely. However, in the midst of all this, we still decide to hold a funeral for Aisha, and upon doing so, the gang was ambushed by the Ronin. It's moments like this that give the characters the much needed depth to relate and humanize their borderline sociopathic, psychopathic tendencies.
Fuck off, Akuji. I'm not killing anyone at Isha's funeral. Tonight, tomorrow, you name a time and I will gladly fuck you up. But not now.
The game does this with each leader of the game as well. Shogo having a strained relationship with his father and depraved of attention. The general, while displaying an unwavering leadership, divulges his failures to his subordinate Mr. Sunshine. And Mero, while impulsive, is very loyal to his people, and this is used to usurp him. Doing this gives the villains a more human appearance, But don't get me wrong, all of these people are terrible. I just like to point out how the game juggles those two thought processes in different scenarios. Also, there seems to be a theme here as far as the game's social commentary, or rather its version of social commentary, similar to what GTA had on the radio stations and adverts.
A daily examination, a really thorough inspection of your bowel movements.
Saints Row's commentary is not just gang warfare in the slums of a city, but rather a more nuanced look at how gangs and certain corporate interests affect the social fabric of society. I mean, look at the CEO of Ultor. The guy looks genuinely evil. Saints Row 2 tackled themes of gentrification, corporate greed, and social inequity with a satirical bite while doing so.
A lot of liberals out there. A lot of liberals out there have been saying that corporations like Ultor are part of the problem.
Saints Row offered a surprisingly nuanced critique of American society that remains pretty relevant to even this day. On the surface, the game presents itself exactly how it's perceived, as a lighthearted gang shooter, but when taking all the previous stuff aforementioned into account, you begin to realize how nuanced the game actually is, and appreciate what the devs wanted aside from the GTA comparisons. Stillwater is divided among several rival gangs, each with its unique characteristics and motivations. Navigating the gang conflicts while rebuilding the 3rd Street Saints and asserting their dominance over the city is essentially the goal or point of the gangs. Now, the game actually does a pretty good job juggling all these gangs. I thought it was well balanced for each gang, and the rewards from each really made it seem like you were really dismantling each gang. I will say though, at some points the Sons of Sandy storyline does feel a bit disconnected from the rest of the gang storylines. It just seems like a plug to explain why there's drugs and why we're selling it, and that's kinda it. The Ronin, a Japanese gang led by Shogo Akuji, aka Hood Sasuke,
And we're in America. Speak English.
play a significant role in the game's narrative. The Ronin is arguably the most involved with Ultor directly, as Akuji, the gang's boss, makes deals with the CEO. The Ronin also inflict the most pain on the Saints with the assassination of Aisha and the hospitalization of Johnny. Now, I know some of you are probably like, well, what about the Brotherhood storyline? And I do agree that it was sad that you had to take out your own mans and everything, but I think the presentation of Aisha's death hit harder. In this particular case, she was innocent and wanted nothing but good for the guys, and that's why her death was a little more intense. Stillwater is a gloomy cesspool of degeneracy and crime. Its streets are littered with trash and derelict buildings, with a northern, nicer area. The city being inspired by Detroit, somehow it takes the gloomy city of Stillwater and gives it life. The open world of Saints Row 2 is praised for its interactivity and the freedom it offers players. Saints Row 2 includes a variety of side activities as well, such as the insurance fraud, septic avenger, and fight club, which add to the game's replayability. These activities are not only fun, but also provide players with additional ways to earn respect and progress the game. The ability to customize vehicles and weapons further enhances the gameplay experience, providing players with more options and freedom. Another thing that I like about the activities is that they have cutscenes explaining why you're about to spray feces all over someone's house.
My cousin runs a septic company. I figured you could borrow one of his trucks, drive around the area and, well, you know.
But not just that, but the activities reflect the very social ideologies in the world, but cranked up to 11. Saints Row 2 was ahead of its time in many ways. Its compelling story, unique gang dynamics, and interactive open world set it apart from the other open world games of its era. Despite the comparisons and the neglect from money-hungry companies willing to ruin an entire franchise, the game's impact on the genre and its lasting legacy are a testament to its groundbreaking achievements. Saints Row 2 pushed the boundaries of what open world games could achieve and remains a beloved title for many players, including myself. From the gangs of Stillwater to the bustling life and dynamic world design, there's something about older games that just captures all the right feelings when playing. I hope I shed light on an underwhelming classic game, enough to pique your curiosity. Even so, let me know in the comments what your favorite aspect of Saints Row 2 was, or if you just didn't like it at all. I'd like to read your guys' experience with the game. That being said, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe. My name is Proto, and I'll see you later.